Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. This week, Commissioner Andy Gipson offers a snapshot on Mississippi's agricultural sector, his view on legislative affairs, medical marijuana, medical freedom, and much more. A one-on-one chat with Andy Gipson begins now on Mississippi Insight. The Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce has been in office since 2018. And we wanted to talk with him about what's going on in the legislature and in the state's critical agricultural sector. The Republican from Simpson County joins us now by Zoom. Commissioner Gipson, welcome to Mississippi Insight.
Thank you, Byron. It's great to be with you this morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with an overview of the state's agricultural sector. It accounts for more than 17% of our workforce. Give us a snapshot, if you will. How are Mississippi farmers and ranchers doing in the 21st century economy?
Well, you know, our farmers and ranchers across the state of Mississippi and across America have never quit farming, and we can thank every one of them for the food we have on our table today and tonight, and for the clothes we wear on our back and the roof over our head. Our tree farmers are producing the great forestry products here in Mississippi, and agriculture actually last year, the year 2021, recorded all-time record production amounts in the state of Mississippi in terms of dollars, and farm gate value exceeded all-time records. We are really excited about that. At the same time, farmers have experienced what all of us have experienced, and that is increased cost of everything we do, everything we buy, from fuel to the fertilizer and other products that go into producing. So it's not as if farmers are seeing a lot more take-home pay because of those added costs. That being said, agriculture is still Mississippi's #1 industry. I think I've already mentioned the record value, $8.1 billion farm gate value, not counting the value-added component of Mississippi agriculture, and it's also the state's largest employer.
One thing that seems to have impacted everything around us is bottleneck in the nation's supply chains. How have those affected how agricultural firms and workers do business in Mississippi?
Affected us in a great deal. Anyone who's tried to purchase a piece of equipment, even a vehicle today, a truck or a car, they can exceed the wait times that there are for the manufacturing sector, and those same wait times are impacting our farmers. We've had shortages in equipment, in farm tractors, and I say shortages, I should say backlogs, because so many of the plants have not been able to get workers in to manufacture the equipment. In some cases, they're waiting on computer chips or other specialty components that have been delayed, and those all translate into delays for equipment in the field. And at the same time, those delays are equaling greater cost, as I mentioned. So the supply chain is affecting the consumer, to be sure, but it's also affecting our farmers and the equipment that we're waiting on that can be delayed. We're fast approaching planting season now. This is getting the time of year farmers are getting ready to get back out in the field and get the seed put in the ground. And fortunately, we do have plenty of seed and we've got plenty of fertilizer. It just may cost more than it has in the past. As you mentioned, a large number of folks who have a job in Mississippi are employed in agriculture-related occupations. And this past year, our #1 commodity, as has been the case for many, many years, is poultry. Chicken is #1. This year, soybeans came in #2, forestry #3, followed by cotton and corn and beef cattle, and all the way down. Everything that can be produced is produced in Mississippi, and I tell folks we do it better than anybody else. Everything from blueberries to sweet potatoes, other produce, watermelons, we do it well. Our farmers are the best farmers in the world. So at a very high level, production is up, production value is up, but so are the costs that go into producing our food and fiber and shelter.
I want to look at something coming out of the White House this month. The Biden administration is planning to spend about $1 billion in the American Rescue Plan funds to promote competition in the meat packing industry. Much of that funding would go toward training programs for butchers and meat packers. What do you think of that initiative, and is it something that we could use right here in Mississippi?
Well, I think that what we've gone through the last 2 years with COVID-19 has shown everybody in America that our meat supply chain is fragile. The large packers out in the Midwest have not been able to keep up with the demand, and in some cases, their plants have been stalled or delayed. I remember a couple of years ago, a big fire that happened in just one plant resulted in some delays in meat packing operations and some empty shelves. So 2 years ago, we had launched an initiative in the Department of Agriculture here in Mississippi to double the capacity of our local meat processing. I think it's important that we have meat processing in whatever shape and form we can have. The large packers, we appreciate what they do, but at the same time, we can't depend on them to provide the meat that we need. So we launched an initiative in the summer of 2020 to double, almost triple our USDA meat processing capacity, working through local existing custom processors. We have a lot of deer processors in the state, but they're not USDA processors, but we have about 8 of those that have upgraded to become USDA meat processors. The grant program that the administration just announced, I think would help train butchers and get more workforce into that. And I think that's important. I think that we do have a worker shortage in this country across all levels. And I think that getting more people trained to be butchers, trained to process meat is a good thing. And certainly we'll look forward to seeing our local processors take advantage of that. But the Biden administration has announced a new program, but I guess I would point out, we've been working on that for about 2 years here in Mississippi, and we're already seeing the fruit of that come to pass with the new processing plant in Greene County. We have other processors that are expanding across the state, north, south, central part of the state, and it's needed because at the end of the day, we gotta have meat to put on the grocery shelves for the folks to buy, and we're excited about the expansion that we've got in place here.
We'll have more with Commissioner Andy Gipson with Mississippi Insight continues. Let's look at legislative affairs. You've applauded the House's passage of a bill that would set up a grain indemnity trust fund. Explain to our viewers what that fund is for and why it's important to state farmers.
This particular year, we saw a grain elevator failure in the Delta. One of the large grain elevators there filed for bankruptcy. Come to find out, that particular elevator has committed fraud. They falsified their financial statements and filed those with the Department of Agriculture and other folks to try to continue operations. Turn out they were falsifying all those records, and that's a terrible thing and a terrible tragedy. So when something like that happens, a fund such as the House Bill 1389 would set up would help compensate farmers or help restore some of their losses if the elevator is not able to meet its obligations. Now, elevator that's gone into bankruptcy, they may pay those farmers out over time, over a period of time. The bankruptcy judge may decide that, but most farmers can't wait. So this fund that was proposed was actually the work product of a farmer task force that my office created here back in the summer. We had folks from Farm Bureau, Delta Council, farmers around the table thinking about how to do this, and they came up with a voluntary program for farmers to assist with it. When they delivered their grain, if they selected to be part of it, they could designate a portion of that to go into a fund to cover losses in the event of a grain elevator failure. That bill, as I mentioned, was farmer drafted, farmer led, and now it's passed the House. It's gone to the Senate for consideration. I think the Senate has passed another version of that. So certainly we appreciate the consideration of those components. And most states across the country do have a fund like this to protect farmers. Mississippi has never had one. We support the creation of one, and it'll provide a safety net for our grain farmers across the state when a grain elevator fails in the future.
What other legislation are you keeping an eye on this session as it relates to your department's work?
Of course, we've been watching all of the debate going on about the tax reduction, the tax elimination. All of those things affect our farmers. They affect Mississippi agriculture. And so we are, very much monitoring that information to see where that bill will go and those different proposals will go. All of that will play into the working operations of farmers across the state. I do appreciate the fact that none of the proposals that I've seen would raise sales tax, for example, on farmers and agricultural equipment. And I appreciate that. And I think that's a good thing. And we'll watch that. We'll also watch what's going on, of course, the medical marijuana bill that has already passed and signed into law. The Department of Health will be administering that. I appreciate the Department of Health taking that on, and I appreciate the House and Senate removing the Mississippi Department of Agriculture from that, because, as I said last year, if it's a medical program, it's not an agricultural program, and a medical program should be under the Department of Health. And we'll be, I will tell you, I have offered our services to the Department of Health to assist them in any technical questions they may have about cultivation and so forth, but just appreciate the Department of Health taking that on. And beyond that, we don't have a lot that we're working on in the legislature. We're monitoring things. We appreciate our senators, appreciate our House of Representatives, Speaker Gunn, Lieutenant Governor Hoseman, and their governor. And all of them, I'm sure, are working together to adopt the best policies for Mississippi. And I appreciate their service. My objection has always been simply the fact that in no other state that I'm aware of, maybe except for one, was the Department of Agriculture put over a medical marijuana program. It always came under a health department or a health-related board. And I think the people of Mississippi who voted for a medical marijuana program, and in fact, they voted in Initiative 65 to put it under the Department of Health. So my objections have been more administrative. We're not set up. We don't have a medical staff. We don't have health experts. We don't test anything like that in the Department of Agriculture. So I do think it's the best fit for it to be under the Department of Health.
You have been a vocal proponent of what you call medical freedom. You've helped organize and spoken at rallies staged to protest government vaccine mandates amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Could you explain your views there?
I'd be glad to. We have seen in so many instances across the country, and in some here in the state of Mississippi, our freedoms have been at risk. A lot of people who urged and who received the vaccination that was provided, the COVID-19 vaccine, a lot of people, even in that category, recognize the need that is a personal medical decision, and no state, no government, no country should be able to mandate whether or not you can work, whether or not you can get an education, whether or not you can fly on an airplane as a condition of getting a medical procedure such as this. It is a personal, private medical decision. I happen to be one who cannot, for medical reasons, get that particular vaccine and some other vaccines. And so my point has been throughout this process that we can't allow our freedoms, we should never allow our freedoms to be taken away by some federal government agency, our state government or agency, our county or city that would take away our freedoms to operate as a citizen of this country as a condition, on the condition of getting a vaccine. I think that is fundamentally a violation of our personal freedoms as Americans. And I think the Supreme Court agrees with me on that, as they demonstrated in striking down the COVID-19 mandate that was put in place by OSHA. So I'm hopeful that our state legislature will adopt policies that will coincide with that, to give people that medical freedom, to restore that freedom, so that people are not kicked out of school, for example. They're not kicked out of nursing school if they can't get a vaccine or are not able to, or have a personal objection to it. I think that is a fundamental violation of our freedoms as Americans, and I am very pleased with the Supreme Court's decision. Disappointed that some of our healthcare workers are still being forced out of their jobs at a time we need more healthcare workers, where they're forcing them out of their jobs. because they're not able to get a vaccine. And I hope the legislature will pass some policies that will support and promote the workers in all areas and not discriminate against folks on the basis of their vaccination status.
Well, aside from COVID vaccinations, Mississippi has some of the strictest vaccination requirements in the nation. We require school children to be vaccinated against diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, polio, hepatitis B, measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox. So why should we require these vaccinations but not COVID vaccinations? Is this not contrary to the notion of medical freedom?
Well, yeah, I think Mississippi's vaccination laws are some of the strictest, in fact, the strictest in the country. When you look at a map of the United States of America, what you see is, I think 43 states have religious objections, religious exemptions. They have personal belief or conscience objections. Mississippi has none of those. So Mississippi is lumped in with California, New York, and a couple of other states, I think Connecticut. So our people have less freedom on these issues than any other folks in America. And I have always been an advocate. In fact, I tried to pass legislation in the legislature to provide more freedom for Mississippians. And, obviously, those bills have not made it through the process. I think that this is a good year for folks to look at that and make sure we do have the same freedoms as other Americans. And I'm cautiously optimistic that that'll come to pass. I certainly hope the legislative leaders will adopt some policies like that. I saw that Speaker Gunn's bill passed the House on the COVID-19 vaccination issue. I hope it will make it through the Senate.
And finally, the Dixie National Rodeo continues this month at the State Fairgrounds in Jackson. Talk about turnout and reception so far.
Well, we're really excited. In fact, I've been working most of the last month on the Dixie National Livestock Show and Rodeo. It is the largest rodeo east of the Mississippi River. It's one of our premier agricultural events here in the state. And it's much more than a rodeo. We just finished up the Dixie National Livestock Shows, our junior roundup, where we had young people from all 82 counties showing their livestock, from beef cattle, dairy cattle, lambs, goats, the hogs, everything here on the fairgrounds. I think we had some 3,000 head of livestock. And then we had the sale of junior champions that resulted in scholarships for these young people. I was a part of all that. And then we're gearing up now for the rodeo. In fact, we just kicked it off Friday. The performance today is at 2:00. Today's Sunday. And we'll have new performances Wednesday through next Saturday. Our ticket sales are very strong right now. We are pleased, of course, we have good weather. Remember last year we had a 100-year ice storm that we had to contend with, and we still had a decent rodeo attendance then, but I think we're on track for a really good year this year. I want to encourage people to go ahead and get their tickets. Tickets range from $20 to $38. You can buy them at the box office. You can buy them at Ticketmaster.com and get your tickets while you can. We'll have 2 weekends this year, this weekend and next weekend, Friday and Saturday next weekend. And we're excited to welcome what we call the greatest show on dirt here to Mississippi. And it is, a huge impact local to our economy, not only here locally, but for the whole state of Mississippi, because we'll have tens of thousands of folks here, participants and spectators who come to support this event, and in doing so, support Mississippi agriculture.
So what is your favorite part of the Dixie National?
Well, one of my favorite parts is the parade. We have that parade that first Saturday, and enjoy the display that we have. We celebrated the spirit of America at this parade. And I also enjoy the bull ride. And I think so many people come to the rodeo and they enjoy all of it, but they're waiting on that bull riding at the very end, right before the concert begins. And our children, we have 4, they all lean forward in their seats when those bulls start coming out. And the best bull riders in the world are there at the Dixie National inside the Mississippi Coliseum. So it's a great family event. A lot of great memories, good food. Come on out. We've got new food options here. We've got a steakhouse going on, and we are delighted to host the Dixie National this year. We always say this is going to be the best year, but I believe this is going to be the best Dixie National ever.
And Commissioner Andy Gipson, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Byron, and you have a blessed day today. Thank you.
All right, here we go. And 3, 2, 1. Big thanks to Andy Gipson for joining us this week. We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown. From all of us here at 12 News, make it a great weekend.